put questions into the chat, and Trish will relay the questions to me. And we are here at the Albuquerque Exotic Woods in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And thanks to the members of New Mexico Woodturners who have agreed to help out, alphabetically: Ron Bain, Tom Durgin, Larry Linford, Bill Mantelli, and myself, Keith Fan. And so now I'm going to switch back to another item that one of our members made. And this is a hollow form. It looks like a vase. It can be used as a vase. And the wood is that pine?
Birch.
Oh, it's birch.
It's full of birch, I heard that.
Okay. And the colors that you see on that are all natural to the wood. It is what is called spalting, S-P-A-L-T-I-N-G. And spalting is basically growth of bacteria and fungus or mold in the wood. Let's show one more item, maybe one of the basket illusions, Tom?
Sure.
Okay. And was this your piece, Tom, or was this Larry Linford's?
Larry's.
Larry's. Larry. So this is a piece by one of our members, Larry Linford. He is here. He called it Snake Dance. And we call this a basket illusion because it looks like a Native American basket weave. How many squares, Larry?
There's 240 spokes and there's 45
radial lines.
So whole slide.
So,
and that's on both sides.
240 spokes and around 45 radial lines that go in and out like the orbits of a planet, and all hand colored. And so with that, I'm going to switch and I'm going to ask the camera person to go back so that we can actually show you making something. All right, so I just switched you to a blank slide while we move the camera. And as soon as the camera is aimed in the correct direction, I'll switch back. Okay, so Larry Linford, and you'll notice that he's wearing a face shield to protect his eyes and glasses so that he can see. And Larry is going to take something that starts out as being square, and he's going to turn it around. And he's using a tool that is called a lathe. And the lathe is a wonderful tool because what it does is it brings the wood to the floor, and you, as the woodworker, goes to lay acid. And so you can see that Larry is slowly removing wood as the wood comes over the tool that he's using is removing the wood, and the shape gets rounder and rounder. Larry, would you stop the lathe, please? And you can see that the object is partially round and it's partially square. Go ahead and finish taking it down, Larry. Thank you. So, the lathe is one of the first machine tools that were invented by people. And back when people first started inventing tools, they would just take a stick from the ground and use them to poke at things. They discovered how to make knives using rocks, how to pound on things using rocks. And then with agriculture, they discovered making pottery, and they also invented lathes using people to power turning the wood while someone else was using the stone tool to cut the wood to make round objects. And yes, I see that the audio is kind of bad when the machine is running. I'm going to try to put the microphone a little bit closer to my mouth while we are talking. Thank you for that comment. Okay, and so Larry is switching tools, and he is now going to use. Not going to get into the details of that, but he's just switching tools because he wants to obtain a different shape. And so each tool specializes in doing different kinds of work on the wood. Right? So go ahead, Larry, please. Has been in Albuquerque for more than 25 years now. And we are affiliated with the National Association of Woodworkers, called the American Association of Woodworkers. And the American Association of Woodworkers has about 15,000 members across the nation, including a few international members. Okay. So, do we have any questions from the audience while Larry is doing the work? Go ahead and please put them into the chat and then push the name.
I don't see any questions yet, but it's still really hard to hear you when that is on. I don't know if the camera's front audio is picking up the actual machinery more than you.
Use the headset as an input, but perhaps it's not using the headset. That move my mouse over it, and if
We do have a question. It says, "What is he making?" It was kind of hard. We might have missed it if you said.
yes. So Larry is going to make, I think, a top that you can spin with your fingers. And back when we're able to do state fair, we actually have 2 lathes set up at the state fair, the entire state fair, so that people can see us work. Is the audio any better?
No, not really. It sounds like it's picking up your audio through the camera and maybe not your headset.
Let me turn off the audio. How about that? Is this any better?
No, you still sound the same.
Okay, I think we're just going to have to live with audio. I apologize for that. That's a so I see the question. How long does it make what he is making? I would guess that it will be done within the next 4 or 5 minutes. And how fast is the machine turning? About 800 or 1,200 revolutions per minute. And Larry is an amateur, but he is a very, very talented amateur turner. And when we say amateur, that means that he does not make a living out of working with wood. There are people who make a living from turning with wood, but one of those, they could probably make a top in just 2 or 3 minutes. We're trying to be safe, and so he's working more slowly in order to demonstrate good practices. What kind of wood is he using? I believe this is maple. Oh, it's cherry. Okay. All right. So you can see that he's in the process of making the handle, and he's looking for a different tool, and he's going to use that tool to begin narrowing down the bit that's going to be the handle. And Normally, I ask if he wants to use the skew, but how do we know? There is a skew. Would you like the skew? No. Okay. And I'm going to type it into the chat. Maybe just actually, if I can change my chat settings, where is my mouse? If I can change my chat settings so I can send to everyone. He's using what we call a potting tool. I offered that he could use a skew. Many professionals like using a skew. So there's a question about the different tools and how they differ in function. So maybe we'll stop right now. Actually, Larry, if you would stop, please. Okay, and let's put up, first of all, a spindle roughing gouge in front of the machine. Yep, thank you. In front of the cherry, perfect. Okay, and that tool, we call that a spindle roughing gouge. And you notice how wide that tool is. That tool is very good for taking wood from square to round. And there's a couple of additional things that you have to pay attention to. You will notice how the wood, the grain of the wood, is running along the axis of rotation. When you're using a spindle roughing gouge, it is incredibly important that your wood is oriented along the axis of the spin. But the spindle roughing gouge is wonderful at taking things from square to round. Okay. The next tool that Larry used, and he's about to show that, is what's called a spindle gouge. And you see how much smaller the front of the tool is. And that tool is good at making details. And so he used it to get that nice shape in the front that looks pointy. And then he's using right now a potting tool. Thank you. And he's just using the tip of the potting tool to remove the wood. And he's making that little handle of that top smaller and smaller as time goes. And so there's a question, do people wear gloves when doing something like this? The answer is no. If you use gloves, the gloves can catch in the wood that is unsafe. And so you don't use gloves. Let's see, how does he stay in pace with the machine? He doesn't need to stay in pace with the machine. The machine brings the wood to the tool, and the tool cuts the wood. And that's why we all love to turn wood, because the machine does all the work. Okay. Can kids use this tool? The answer is absolutely yes. They need to be taught how to do it safely. In the summertime, in previous summers, we had woodworking camps at Explorer, and the last 3 days of the camp, we had the kids turning items on the lathe. And the last day of the camp, they would make a top, just like what Larry is making right now. One new message, how much does a lathe cost? Well, a lathe would cost anywhere from a couple of $100 to several $1,000s. And then you need the tools, and each tool would cost anywhere from about $30 to a couple of $100. You'd need someone to teach you to use it. And our club does teach people, but we don't do it all the time. we only teach people when we get enough people to fill a class, and then we can get a calendar that the teachers are willing to teach. And we also have mentors who would teach one-on-one. So, and at that point, Larry, how about finishing your talk? Okay. So Larry is taking that last piece, the diameter down. He's going to narrow the diameter a little bit, and then are you going to give him a narrow potting tool so he can just pot it off at the end? Yes. Bill Mantelli will do that. No sanding. Okay. And so Larry is going to take the top off the wood. Okay. And you notice that he's not holding the end. He's just got his hand around it so that when it comes off the lathe, it doesn't go flying off. And it's just about out. And there it is. And it's done. Okay. So are you going to try to spin it on the floor? There you go. And voila. And the audio is much better because we turned off the machine. So I'm going to switch back to a view of, this may look abstract, and while the camera person would move back so that we can show some more pieces. Okay. What I'm showing is sandpaper, and while the camera person is getting set up, Tom, would you grab this and hold that? And if you'd focus on the sandpaper, and I'm going to switch to the sandpaper. Sandpaper is basically abrasive grit, and it's called sandpaper because it used to be done with sand that was glued to paper, and you would use that to rub wood to remove small amounts of wood. And not now, thank you. So go ahead and give me the sandpaper back and show one more different piece. Okay. Oh, ha! Those are fun, aren't they? Those look like birds with top hats. Who made those pieces? Larry Linford made those two pieces, and each of the pieces is turned, and then it is assembled and put on the stand. Okay. And the head is one piece. Okay. Go ahead and bring another piece. Maybe the spatula. Let's show them something that's functional. Okay. So that's something that's made out of cherry, that and the bowl is made out of birch. And I made both of those. The bowl is a salad bowl, and the spatula, you can use it for cooking. It actually has been used for cooking. I made it myself out of cherry wood. I grabbed it out of the kitchen before I came here. And the same thing with the salad bowl. Okay, thank you, Tom. Let's see. Ooh, yes. Who made that piece? Tom. So tell us what kind of wood that is.
Figured maple.
So the wood is maple and it's figured, and so that means that the tree grew, but the tree had stress, and as the tree grew, it changed the density of the wood in between those rings. And so you get that beautiful effect that looks like waves on top of the wood. And is that the Bill? What is wood? Honey locust. And the dark color is comes from the middle of the tree. We call that hot wood. And the light colored wood is the sap wood, the outer part of the tree. And it looks like a Y because the tree grew from the bottom, as you can see, and then in the middle, it grew those two branches, one going to the left and one going to the right. And Bill made this so that you can still have some bark on the edge. Okay, there's a question about how do you carve wood, and we'll get to that. We'll see if we can get someone to do a little bit of carving in front of the camera. While I pull out my knife, I'm going to ask. Oh, that's another lidded box, and the top part was made with multiple pieces of wood, and is that Ron? Ron, that's your piece? Yeah. And Ron glued those pieces of wood together, and then he turned it. And so it has a lid. The lid comes off, I hope. Does the lid come off? And so you can use it to hold the items. And then he decorated the underside of the lid using a technique that we call the off-center or off-axis turning. And is Michael Anderson available to do hand carving? Can something happen to wood when it gets wet? Yes, wood swells when it gets wet, and when you take it off of the tree, fresh wood is quite wet. And the fresh wood is green, not yet, and so it is still quite soft. And then as wood dries, it becomes hard. If you get it wet, it becomes soft again. It can become damaged. Just something on it. Anything. If you want to use aspen, you can use aspen. That's cedar. Your choice. Okay. So we had a question about carving wood, and so I'm going to ask Michael Anderson to just carve something on wood. And so, Michael, would you go in front of the camera? Okay. And we're going to, Michael has a knife. Okay. It's a carving knife, and he's just going to take some shavings off a piece of cedar. And you'll notice that he's going along with the grain of the wood, and so he's getting nice and long shavings when you do that. Now, you also notice he doesn't have anything in front of the blade, and you notice that when he's going cross grain, the quality of the cut is a lot coarser, right? You'll also notice that his fingers are out of the way, so that when he's carving the wood, the knife does not have a target. If the knife goes off, it will not hit him or anyone. And that would be a really bad day for everyone. And now he's carving he's doing something on the inside of the cedar. I don't know what that is. And Michael is something of an artist, so he will tell you what he's making when he's done. So that he can always change his mind. All right. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll go back and show another item that we made out of wood, and that's a goblet, and the top of the goblet is made from multiple pieces of wood that were assembled together, and then they were turned. Zoom out a little bit because you're losing focus, Ron. Thank you, better. And now you can see the inside of the goblet. What? Yes, hollowing that inside is actually done on the lathe also using a tool. And look at how long that stem and skinny that is. And that actually started out at a big diameter. And even though he assembled several pieces of wood in making this, he turned it all as a single object all at once after he assembled that. Question about what would be harder to carve. Some woods are harder to carve than other woods. And the woods which are fresh from a tree is always easier to carve than wood that has been dried for a long time or dried in an oven. And poplar is really easy to carve. Aspen is another wood that is easy to carve. Michael, would you like some aspen? I've got some aspen. You're fine with the cedar. Oh, Michael is going to attempt to carve the spoon. Actually, this is a basswood spoon. I carved that spoon a couple of years ago, and Michael is going to carve out just a bowl from inside. And so with the sharp tool, you'll notice he's not using a whole lot of force. For those of you who are younger and might not be as strong as Michael, we teach you using your body, using your legs to help push the tool. And of course, we help teach you not to have anyone in front of the sharp edge of the tool, because your parents don't want to see blood all over the floor. Not saying anything about you yourself, but maybe you don't want to see blood in front of you on the floor either. And so, just like that, Michael has done the bowl of a small spoon. That was really fast. And he could go deeper, but I'm just looking at it from where I stand, and based on the size of that spoon, that's about as deep as I would normally go. You know, not much deeper than that because it would just not look as good. Okay, let's show some more pieces.
So I have a question. With that spoon he was making, to cut the rest of it out, would he continue to carve it, or would he do something different, or would it all be hand carved?
When we teach doing this, we will use a power saw to cut the wood to close to the shape that you want, and but the students will be actually carving all the details. They would be carving the inside bowl, they would be carving the outside shape, and they would be decorating the handle. Is that mesquite? And so that was Bill Mantelli because he said yes. And I love mesquite wood. And you see a dark line going through the middle. That is an inclusion in, that's a crack, not just an inclusion. And Bill filled that inclusion with epoxy so that the vase, the hollow form, would not fall apart on him, as he termed it. This is a crochet hook. It was made by Kay Grant, one of our club members. You can see the hook at the top. You can see the details that were at the bottom. The hook was carved by hand, and she also made a knife opener and a pen. Not a knife opener, a letter opener, excuse me, a letter opener. Not quite sure of the wood. Is that a wengi? Okay. A wengi is a wood that comes from Africa. It has beautiful coloration, dark brown with black accents, and it's a very, very hard wood. Okay. Let's see. Candle holder with what looks like the skeleton of a cholla cactus, and is that a cherry on the top? Oh, juniper. Okay, juniper is native to New Mexico. Well, many junipers. How do I say that? New Mexico has a lot of juniper. And Tom says it all came from his yard, including the jumper cholla. Tom lives in near Tijeras in the East Mountains of Albuquerque. That's Ron Bain. He made a pen out of maple wood, but the maple had gotten very damaged by water and bugs and things like that. And so he stabilized it using plastics and then turned the pen after it was stabilized. And so the green color is not natural to the maple, but you can see some of the wood on the inside. This is a plate made out of pinon pine. Pinon pine is another wood that grows in New Mexico. The natives use the pinon pine for the nuts. And this was actually quite a large piece of pinon pine. And I received it in December for Christmas, just the wood. And then I made the plate out of it. You can see all of the holes where the bugs ate the wood. The red color and the black color are natural colors left by a fungus that grew in the wood after the beetles ate all the holes in the wood. Another basket illusion plate made out by Larry Linford. Oh, okay, Tom Durgin made this particular one out of maple. And Tom, do you remember how many spokes and how many radial lines? 60 spokes going around and 20 real wheels deep. And then a lot of time with a permanent ink marker and a lot of patience to do that. Okay. This is something that I made out of honey locust, and just about a week ago. And it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch thick. And I enjoy making that kind of wood because I can turn one of those out in about 1 hour from start to finish. And that is a goblet made out of pear wood. The pear comes from someone's yard here in Albuquerque. The pear tree got either died or it got burned down by a windstorm, and we collected the wood, and Ron Bain turned that goblet all in one session. Ron, about how much time did it take you from mounting until finished?
Couple hours.
About 2 hours or so to make it start to finish. And pear wood, especially when freshly cut, is just a joy to work with. It's a very fine grained wood. It works quite easily, but it's also a hard wood, and so it holds detail. That's another piece that Tom Durgan made out of the figured maple, and you used a scroll saw to cut the inside. So this is flat work. It is not turned. But that's about how long did it take to make that, Tom?
Probably
About an hour to cut the pattern of the eagle's head from there. Question on can you use the goblet? And the answer is yes. If you finish them with a food safe finish, you can absolutely use them. And my friend Phil Weaver, who is not here, he makes goblets and mugs, and he treats them with epoxies. And after the epoxy cures, they can hold all kinds of liquids. Let's see, apple. That's another wonderful wood to work with, but difficult to obtain because you have to wait for an apple tree to die before you can harvest the wood and use it. Okay. And Michael wants to show where he is on the spoon. Hold it still, Michael, and let Ron change the camera view. Okay, now rotate it over so that we can see the balls. And you use a solvent or something for the magic marker. Is that just your hands? Okay, cleaned it just a little bit. Yeah, and cut it. Did you use a hand saw?
hand saw here, and I took a knife and split the.
So he used a hand saw to cut most of the handle off, and then he used a knife coming in to cut the. And then he's showing you how he used the knife to take it to the edge of where the hand saw cut and cutting that off. And probably if we let Michael alone and didn't give him a hard time, he'd probably have the spoon finished before the session is done today. Michael started working with wood when you were probably 15, 14, yeah, 14, 15 years old. And you're what, about 20 years old now? 22. Okay. Let's see. Bill, would you like to turn something, or would you be just doing the top again? You'll be doing the top again. No, we don't have time for a goblet. This is we have about 20 minutes left in the session. Okay, so actually, let's show the wood, the bread knife. Let's show this on a bread knife. Okay, we're going to switch positions. This was Bill Mantelli made the bread knife. you can purchase the blades, and then you would be making using wood and saw, in this case, multiple pieces of wood that are laminated together, and then use bandsaw to make the shape, and drill a hole so that you can put the string in at the bottom, which you cannot see because of the overlay, and now you can see the string at the bottom, and screw the blade in, and you can cut even slices of bread because the shape gives you a reference mark, and as you cut your bread, you can see how thick it is. And so if you love making sandwiches, this is a really great bread knife. And yes, especially with homemade bread. Tom, that looks like your piece. Oh, that's Ron Bain. Okay. Again, that's a decorative item, multiple pieces of wood assembled for making the foot, lidded box, and using, is that rosewood for the box itself? Cocobolo. Cocobolo is the family of rosewood, and lead. Look at that shine on the inside, and the finial is that the maple finial. So what Tom is showing with his finger, the long shape, that we call that a finial, F-I-N-I-A-L. And a question about does water damage items? And the answer is depending on how you finish the wood. Water will damage most woods, but if you seal the wood with a finish which is watertight or waterproof, it will preserve the wood. As an example, Navy ships up until the 1960s used a type of wood that the lignum vitae is the wood that the Navy ships use to hold the propellers. And oh, this is heavy. As soon as Tom grabs it, this is a sample of lignum vitae wood. Very heavy and oily wood, completely waterproof even without any finishes. And the Navy used lignum vitae to make the bearings that would hold the propellers. And different piece of wood is that and the color does not always indicate how hot the wood is, but color does indicate whether it is wood from the center of the tree or whether it is from the outer portion nearer to the bark. Question from Sarah Linford to everyone. Can you get hurt wood turning? Is Sarah any relation to you? Your granddaughter. So the answer is yes. And that's why we want you to learn with someone, with a teacher, so that we can teach you safe practices. And let's see. I'm going to switch cameras, okay? This is a squash sandpaper. Let me see if I can focus just a little bit. If you remember a little bit earlier, Tom Duggan was holding a piece of sandpaper to show how the to show what sandpaper looks like. This is the view of sandpaper under a microscope. This is coarse sandpaper, and I'm going to switch now a fine sandpaper, and you see those little grains. They look like.
We've lost your audio. There you go.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I know what it is. It is a computer. For some reason, I cannot force my computer to use the headset. The computer seems to be using the built-in microphone. Apologies for that. That's why it is noisy. I'm going to now put in the fine sandpaper. And so you can see the difference in the size of the grains that were in the sandpaper. Okay? And so now we're going to switch back to tuning. Larry is going to hand off to Bill Mantelli. And Bill is going to just turn around. Make most of it cylindrical, Bill, please. Okay, I'm about to switch cameras. Okay, and so you notice how Bill puts on a face shield to protect the eyes. And if I get myself closer to the computer, maybe my voice will not be overwhelmed by the machine when it turns on the machine. And on top of that, Bill is going to wear safety prescription glasses underneath his face shield. Some of us need to wear glasses so that we can see, and Bill is probably one of those. And so Bill is going to turn around. Question about can you hand carve a briar? The answer is yes, but briar wood is very hard. And so most people who work with briar wood, they will use a machine to work with that. Okay, I'm going to move my computer a little bit and see if that can make the audio a little bit better. Trish, is audio decent right now?
Yes, yes, it is. We can hear you good.
Okay, so that was my issue. I apologize. I didn't realize that my computer was using its own microphone as opposed to the headset that I had plugged in. So Bill is making something that's almost a cylinder. So you could see that this could turn into a small rolling pin, for example. And if you'll notice, he's going from a large diameter to a small diameter. What you want to do is you want to work with how the wood grows. Wood grows on trees. Does it grow on trees? I guess it does grow on trees. But seriously, wood grows in fibers. And what you want is you want to work so that you're always cutting so that each fiber is supported by fibers underneath the wood. And so he's made a nice cylinder. And at this point, it could almost be a very small rolling pin. Or you could make a small top at the end for someone with tiny hands. And maybe that's what you'll do, is you make a small top for someone with tiny hands. Okay. I almost feel like I'm watching surgery here because Bill is asking for Larry to give him a tool, and Larry is giving him the tool.
How do you create the hollow inside, like the vases or the goblets? Because this is a solid piece of wood that you're turning off the outside. How do you do the inside?
Question about how you do the inside. Actually, let's just do that. Let's not do a top. Why don't you use a spindle gouge to the little hole? And don't need to go very deep, Bill. Just go in, move the camera more towards Larry so that you can get the end view. And I'm going to move the light stick so that the I'm limited with my cord. Tom, would you move that light to roll? But we've got a multiple crew working here. I'm tethered to the computer because my headset is not very long. And so Larry is going to do a little bit of hollowing. And, excuse me, Bill Mantelli is going to do a little bit of hollowing. And so there it is. Yes, Ash, thank you for asking that question. And he's adjusting the tool rest. He said he's adjusting is called the tool rest. The wood has lots of force as it is being rotated. And Larry does not need to resist that force himself. Bill, excuse me. Bill does not need to resist the force himself because the tool rest will take the punch of the wood coming down and pushing it against the tool. Right? And so there we go. Bill is going to begin making Tom, would you just come and stabilize the other end of the lathe for him, please? Thank you. Yeah. When we are working inside our workshop, our lathe don't have wheels on them. We're doing this courtesy of Jonathan McDonald at Albuquerque Exotic Woods. And the lathe is on wheels so that it can be moved quickly. And you can see how he's beginning to make a little bit of a hollow at the end. Ron, would you zoom in just a little bit more, please? A little bit too much. Back out. Yes, that looks good. Okay. And so now you can see that he's just using that spindle gouge, and he's just going in. And he's making that hole bigger and bigger. And that is just how you would hollow out the insides of a vase or a hollow form. Now, hollowing out the inside of a bowl is a different technique because the orientation of the wood is different. And you need to follow the orientation of the wood. You would be using a different tool to do that. So patience, and especially with a machine that Bill is used to, like in his own garage, as opposed to the machine here, he will be a lot more comfortable doing this particular piece. There you are. Did someone bring a bowl gouge? Let's have a bowl gouge and a spindle gouge together in the same field of view. So Larry is in the process of getting those two tools while Bill is continuing to hollow. And the code word of the day, for those of you who would like to fill out your passport, is goblet. And that top that Larry made, Larry, if you will give that to me, I will pass it on to Explorer, and perhaps Explorer could put it into the drawing giveaway. And Larry is nodding his head, so the answer is yes. Okay. And so if you bring those two tools up, and then Ron, if you would focus on the tools after Larry puts them in front of the wood. I wonder if you can show the side, not the top, Larry. Yes. So you can see the bowl gouge, the angle is a lot more blunt than the angle on a spindle gouge, and the flute that is on top of the gouge itself for the bowl gouge is a lot deeper than the flute on the spindle gouge. And so the geometry of the tool helps you cut wood more efficiently depending on how the grain of the wood runs. Question, how many trees worth of wood do you guys use in a month? And that is a wonderful question. If you're asking me, for example, I might go through like 1/100th of a tree a month because I have a job by day and I only get to hang out with my babe on weekends. And we never cut trees down. We always recycle wood. We find wood that someone has to remove because the tree is sick or it has been knocked down by the wind, or the tree has died because the bugs ate too much of it. And then several of our club members, Bill, Larry, Ron, and Tom, they all have pickup trucks. And they work with Bob Rochelo, another one of our club members, to help remove the dead wood, which then we use in the club. Okay. I think we will stop making demonstrations just because there's only a couple of minutes left. Any additional questions?
Does it look like... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say I'm going to switch back where I have the printed names of everyone to acknowledge the support. And then if someone will put this in front of the camera, I'm going to switch back to the camera. And that is a spoon that Michael Anderson was carving. And that is all done by hand in about 25 minutes with a bunch of us old guys bugging Michael while he was in the middle of carving it. Right? So I'm going to switch back to the credits, and we'll stay a couple of minutes if there are questions, more questions, but if not, I'd like to very much also thank Explora, who have been a wonderful resource for science in New Mexico. And I think woodturning is science, it's technology, it's engineering, it's art. I mean, take a look at some of the things we've done, and of course, math. And so thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, He. Thank you to all your wood turning friends there. It was a great demonstration. We want to thank everyone who was on the call with us and for all your great questions. This is the last day of our Science in the Community events for Science Fiesta Week. We have one more coming up in about an hour. You can find how to register on our website for that. And tomorrow is our full expo day. So we're going to have demonstrations that are going to be recorded live at Explora, but we can't have public there, obviously. But it'll be played on our YouTube channel, and you can stream it directly from the Explora website. So once again, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for He and the wood turners, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Trish, and thank you all for joining us. And when we're back normal, we will be having camps. Alrighty?